With Super Tuesday in the books, it is just about a foregone conclusion that we are going to have a presidential rematch between current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Funny thing is, even though these are the two people who are going to be going up against each other, if you probably poll most of Americans, they all wish we had two other people. But regardless, this is what we got. And polls suggest a tight cliffhanger. And the number one issue, according to most polls, that's going to sway the election one way or the other is immigration. So what impacts on immigration will we likely see if Donald Trump returns to office? This is what we believe at the moment at Brad Show Live. The first Trump administration, to remind everybody, saw the adoption of a number of creative, tough immigration policies, including, but not limited to, the zero tolerance policy for undocumented immigrants, the return to Mexico policy forcing immigrants to wait in Mexico in what many considered was deplorable conditions while their asylum claims and other claims for entry into the United States were being decided. Trump put in Title 42. That was an order which closed the U.S.-Mexico border in the name of public health during the pandemic. Trump also banned Muslims from certain countries, didn't do a total Muslim ban from every country, but there was a Muslim ban from multiple countries. Mass detention of immigrants and the end of catch and release, that was a hallmark of Donald Trump's presidency, and he used that as a tool for immigration enforcement, and also used the tool of scaring people. If any people remember the Brad Show Live from when we were on during the Donald Trump times, there was always these scare tactics that ICE is running through this neighborhood, ICE is running through that neighborhood, just looking to scare people, even though ICE may or may not have been there, but was putting out all these public announcements from his administration that ICE was going to be here, ICE was going to be there, just to scare people. And of course, the separation of migrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, if given a second term, Donald Trump has promised to start where he left off. Now, so expect all of those policies listed above to come back in the second Donald Trump term and to be supplemented with even likely tougher immigration policies. So the fear in the immigrant communities generated by his immigration statements and policies, as they did in his first term, may chill immigrants from accessing public benefits. And we're talking about legal immigrants, not just undocumented immigrants, including healthcare, which, as the COVID pandemic taught us, helps ensure everybody's health. And distrust of government may lead many immigrants to not report crimes and otherwise not cooperate with the police. And by restricting migration, Trump's immigration policies could well contribute to a tighter labor market in agriculture, construction, service industries. There may be a shortage of workers. Changes in the job market in post-COVID and relatively low fertility rates among U.S. citizens has already resulted in a tight labor market. And we have only seen this tight labor market kind of come back to a more manageable labor market. And we've talked about this in previous shows. People getting legal work permits were allowed to come into the United States. So a tight labor market is going to lead to, yes, increased wages for workers, but whatever increase in wage, so everyone's like, oh yeah, that's great, I need a raise. But that raise is going to be accompanied by, in my belief, inflation. So whatever raise you're going to get is going to be taxed by the silent tax of inflation. And most likely workers will have less in their pocket to spend when all is said and done, in Brad Show Live's opinion. Brad Show Live's opinion is my opinion because I'm Brad and this is my show and I'm live. So there we got it. And in a second Biden administration, we got to go back and look at what he's done so far. In the early days of 2024 campaign, President Biden responded with a call to Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform. He also suggested that additional measures to control the flow of migrants in the U.S.-Mexico border should occur. So Biden, a little more reasonable. He wants to do some immigration reform, make people legal who aren't necessarily legal. but also acknowledging we got big problems at the border and we definitely need to tighten it up. However, Biden has walked back many of the harshest Donald Trump immigration policies in his first term. He ended the Muslim ban. He ended Title 42, which closed the border. He ended the return to Mexico policy, which said that anybody applying for asylum is going to be returned to Mexico and wait for their asylum hearing in Mexico. And in addition, Joe Biden, he never talked of immigrants as deserving of harsh treatment or as criminal or as a rapist, as former President Donald Trump has. And President Biden, he's more likely to continue to pursue a more moderate immigration approach, in no small part because he doesn't want the progressive wing to go against him. There is a progressive liberal wing in the Democratic Party that is very pro-immigration. And if Biden gets too tough on immigrants, he's going to lose that vote. So he can't lose the progressive vote, not only in the election, but also in Congress, because there's a lot of progressive Democrats in Congress as well. So even if embracing somewhat tougher positions than he has in his first time, it seems, based on Bradshaw Live's opinion, which is Brad, because it's my show and I'm live, it seems highly unlikely that Joe Biden is going to ever go to the extremes that Donald Trump would. Immigrants would be less likely to fear the government under President Biden than under Donald Trump. And in addition, Biden probably is not going to restrict the labor migration as much as Donald Trump. So therefore, wages and inflation should remain lower because of President Biden's policies. Now, President Biden and former Donald Trump offer two different approaches to immigration that would impact the country and immigrants, obviously, in many different ways. Immigration is the number one issue that most people say is the most important issue facing the United States of America right now. And it's really going to come down to people saying, do we want to kick immigrants out or do we want a more compassionate approach? And we'll see what happens.